We're going to get started. Thank you, everybody, for taking an hour of your day to join us on yet another video call. But today is pretty special. My name is Steve Fisher. I work with our public sector agencies and school districts here in the Western United States and in partnership with our Oregon CTC. There's a big, yeah, that sounds better, I guess. We've really curated some pretty incredible people in the leadership space around security for school districts. I'd like to introduce each of them, give them just a brief opportunity to say hello and who they are and how long they've been working in the education security space. And then we're gonna just kind of walk through in order, and there'll be an opportunity for questions at the end and throughout as well. So we'll do our best to navigate any technical difficulties. So I'd like to start by introducing Terry Taylor. Terry's the Director of Facilities at Gresham Barlow School District in Gresham, Oregon. And Terry's joining us today to talk about a very important topic, strategic procurement and choosing your bond partner. They just went through a very large bond process over the last couple of years, continue to some degree, and sharing that experience is something that Terry's going to be doing today. Terry, could you come off of mute for just a moment and maybe say hello and let everyone know how long you've been doing this?
Sure. Thanks a lot, and I appreciate you inviting me to share our story and really the background of what Gresham Barlow has done in working with, what we call Security Trio. But this is my 38th year in school facilities. Sorry, I got a safety radio going on. My 38th year, 17 years, most recently with Gresham Barlow. My responsibilities are really the facilities for construction. We've just ran a $350 million bond we're finishing up. But in doing that, brought my skills a little longer. It usually was operational pieces inside. So maintenance, grounds, custodial. Safety was always one of those things that people filled in on the side, but it was still my responsibility as a facilities person. So at Gresham Barlow, we had cameras, we had access control, we had bits and pieces, but it was fragmented. And so I'll share that a little bit when I get in the store.
Cool. Thanks, Terry. We appreciate it. I also get the opportunity to introduce Russell. Russell's joining us from the road today. As you can imagine, people with these kinds of responsibilities need to be a lot of places at the same time. So Russell, thanks for carving out some time for this thing. Russell's the security director at Leander ISD in Austin, Texas. And down in Texas, Russell's able to provide a unique security perspective about really just being open during COVID over the past year. And we look forward to hearing his story. Russell, if you would, just a few minutes about you and your history in the education space and security and law enforcement.
Thank you, Stephen. I thank you for the opportunity. As you all know, we've had a lot of challenges in Texas as well, and besides the COVID, and on top of that, it's been unique. And thank you for the opportunity to just kind of air out what's happened for us here. I've been with the district at least as this position for about 3 years. Prior to that, 30 plus years of law enforcement arena. You're probably seeing in Texas, at least, that this position that I hold is getting very popular with the other districts statewide, mostly because it ties in your law enforcement, your first responders with the district. It speaks a different language, and sometimes you need that liaison, that consulting side that sees a different perspective in the education world, and it's been really very interesting, to say the least, in the last 3 years.
I imagine so. Thanks for joining us today, Russell. I'd also like to introduce Guy Grace. So Terry and Russell are going to pretty much just have a conversation with us and share some of their experiences. Guy has a few slides that he's going to present as well. Guy has been in the education space for quite some time. We're thrilled to have him. He's with the Partner Alliance for Safer Schools, as well as a few other endeavors that he's involved in these days. And he's going to be sharing with us really a conversation around emerging from COVID and the new threat landscape and where we are today and where we're going. So, Guy, thanks for joining us. I think you're probably at home up in Wyoming right now. Tell us a little about you and your school.
Thank you. I recently retired as a school security director about 5 months ago from the Littleton Public School District. I worked there for 32 years. I've been in the security for 36 years, and What my new role is, and as I sort things out, is I want to continue to be an advocate for, just like Russell had stated, an advocate for school safety end users, the manufacturers, the integrators, the stakeholders, and the communities across the country. We think about where we are right now, especially it's so important that we consider the unification, the integration of all these different components that we have to deal with on any given day. It was, emerging from that, it's going to be so important. That's what my slides will cover, but I'm honored to be here with all of you. Thank you.
Okay, we appreciate it. And thanks to all of you for taking the time. I know how busy you all are. We're going to have about approximately 15 minutes each, roughly, a little longer, a little shorter, no big deal. Hannah on our marketing team will be monitoring any questions in the chat as we go along, and we'll jump in accordingly, but we'll certainly have time for some Q&A at the end as well. So Terry, with that, please, we look forward to hearing about choosing your bond partner and some of that strategic procurement process for you.
Sounds great. And just hearing Guy and Russell, so that really kind of is why Gresham Barlow, when we took on our bond, knowing that we had a great relationship with our first responders and knowing that we had systems in place with our cameras and our access control, and we had intrusion alarms, but they were fragmented. And so when we have this opportunity with a bond, we look to standardize everything from roofing materials, flooring materials. And so it really drove down to, how does this integration work with schools with access control and cameras? I mean, I know everybody watches on TV when you see someone doing something with video surveillance and enhance. And, we had everything thrown at us from, oh, it's going to be $1 million a school to, you know what, you got a good system where it's at. And to us, it really we focused on trying to have the same systems in our schools across. No matter what school you looked at, you're still going to be able to see access control being the same. I want to know where the buses drop off students. I want to know where the buses or the cars drop off students. I want them to be able to see them in and out. I don't care what person looks at it. You're just looking at a different school. To do that, we went through a bit of a special procurement with our board through our bond, standardizing technologies, but a platform that would work. And as you know, we work in schools and we have the need, but we don't have the knowledge. So we reached out to Convergent and Reese Technologies to be able to help us understand what platforms we should be using. And in doing that, we selected Linnell, Milestone, and Bosch, and that integration need. And so we could start looking at that, but we couldn't package them as a school district. So we went out for requests for proposals from the vendors on and qualifications. Please share with us how that would look from a rollout standpoint, because that integration end game is where we want it, but we're not the engineers, and I don't want to really a third-party engineer figuring that out. The integrators are the ones that know that. So we went to our board and they approved that process. We opened that up to vendors that could supply those 3 areas with surveillance, video surveillance, access control, and intrusion alarm. With that, we did select 2 companies to be able to do that, and then we selected an integrator. So by doing that, it standardized our pieces all the way down from how we access our buildings. We have levels to be able to have first responder levels. We have emergency levels. We get it down to coding into our buildings of when teachers can come in. It really is important in today's world, and the things going on in Texas. You think things are going on in Texas. In Oregon, we've got some serious challenges just in the inner city and things, and we need to be able to control what we can control. The connection with our police department is paramount. So if we can keep things simple with us, we can give them access, and then we could work that through. And it's through that integration and it's that work with Convergent to be able to help us understand how does this layering look. We kicked it off probably 4 years ago. We're finishing up 8 schools this summer, and so we'll be fully on board. It is our goal to then branch that out to the buildings, and so they have a little more vision on what they do. Our biggest piece is we're responsible for 12,000 students. It's my job as a facilities director to be able to make sure those systems are in place to know that students show up, where they're at during the day, and know that they can leave. And when they leave, we have some video coverage that we do see who's picking them up. Are they getting on a bus? Most recently with COVID, we just turned it to a point where instead of just staff having badges to badge in and out, we now have 12,000 students that are badging in and out of our buildings for contact tracing. And again, that integration was there. Sure, it cost some money for badges in the process, but we were ready to move on a dime with that integration piece. And really, it's been seamless. We talk about being pulled away for other things, and we got Russell in a car, and we've got folks around, and I've got HVAC needs that are pulling me away today. But we're also looking at finishing up these important pieces and understanding that any given time we can get pulled away. These other systems have to be stable. So we're lucky that we're able to do that in our situation. Our bond work gave us that opportunity to standardize, but from the fragmented pieces we had before, or basically standalone systems, to be able to bring that together is a need, whether we have a bond or not. But with us, that cost ended up being very important to our public. It was our #1 piece for safety and security coming into our bond. And so by doing this, it is really our flagship opportunity to let our community, our parents, know that this technology is in there, and we're able to confidently tell them that these things are in place. I couldn't do that before.
Terry, can I interrupt you just for a moment? I just want to ask a question just for the purposes of time and really the topic. Choosing your partner, we oftentimes talk to our clients or potential clients about the value of having the right partner on board, not just to be able to source the technologies or solutions you want, but to be able to truly perform. What have been some of the things as far as choosing the right partner that you found to be the most valuable with your relationship with the integrator that you guys chose?
Sure. So as we look at different technologies and multiple buildings, I defer to the folks that have done that work. And by choosing Convergent as our integrator, one of the biggest pieces with that is that roadmap work that Convergent was able to do for me on where those milestones would be, where is that leading us as a district, is very important, because even though they can all stand alone as their own project, I could have a video project, I can have a access control project, we can get those things in. We have to look down the road of how are we going to use that, and be able to have that mapped out in a clear vision is really one of the sole reason I said we've got to, as a team, partner with Convergent on that. And so I brought in my technology director, CFO. We have an outside consultant that we use on really the documenting of the drawings of these pieces. And some of those were already in place with Convergent, but it was really a confidence level from my CFO and risk manager standpoint that said, yep, that's where we need to go. Technology wise, the comfort level with my tech folks, because everything we know today resides on our networks. And so being able to get our technology folks partnered with Convergent to be able to have that high level conversation that honestly I can't understand. I mean, I'll get the right people in the right room or in the room, but at that piece, it's really having that confidence level that this wasn't the first time that Convergent had done it. These are the things that you need to take into consideration. This is how long it will take to to implement those pieces, and there was milestones along the way. So I guess that comfort level with us is paramount. By them having that plan in place to be able to support us really helped. And sure, there's changes to us because, you know, as we look at it, technology changes, and we've thrown in curveballs to it. And so the curveballs that we've been able to throw to Convergent, because we want to use our buildings a little different, have not been a hurdle. And so I think those flexibility pieces, it's that leadership that Convergent's been able to do, and also that comfort level with us that we knew we could get there with them, and also with us being able to be variable in our needs.
Yeah, you know, it's a partnership, right? And
Yeah.
having a seat at the table, not just with you, Terry, but all the other stakeholders and influencers that are involved. And the idea of a committee and a lot of people engaged in the process is pretty standard these days, without question.
Yeah, and I guess the piece, and you said it, I said it, but from a facility side, I'm the one responsible to make sure it works. Technology, really, their hands on it. We tie it into our human resources department when we onboard a new employee. What type of a system do we want to have? Are they a teacher? Are they an educational assistant? Are they a custodian? And to be able to get that flow done is so important. And really, that piece is with different players in the game. So, right, getting the right players in there and talking is paramount for us. Not that anybody else couldn't do it, but it was that roadmap and seeing it that really helped us understand that we would feel comfortable where those decision points were needed.
Well, you know, choosing your partner is something that we encourage the school districts to lead with in their process. Sometimes the technology drives the conversation, but having the right partner, not just to make sure the functionality and it all works the way it's supposed to, and it's serving you not just for today, but down the road, is all part of that process. So,
well, and I guess, you know, and just from our experience, we didn't understand that. And I appreciate you for saying that, because it's not our nature to do this business. However, we knew there was better technologies out there than what we were doing. And so we looked at the tools, not the integration. When we did get into the tools and started working with Convergent on understanding those pieces, that said, okay, that video system is just a video system. It could be another brand. How are you going to use it? Right? Asking those questions. And we thought we knew. And then when we look to that, we may want to integrate it with access control and with our Bosch system. And so by doing that, those are the things that if we'd have led with that conversation with an integrator first, we may have made some different decisions. As we break it down, I think that's paramount for others. As a learning tool for me, I would have reversed the process, right, and let you come with the solution versus me trying to come with a solution and then fit us around that project. So thank you for saying that.
Yeah, I mean, listen, at the end of the day, you know, a true partner doesn't sell a specific box with any one name on it. They're just looking for the right solution, you know, and
right.
Everyone's environment is a little bit different, and you landed on one, and it's been a great partnership. So, Terry, for time, I just thank you so much. I know what a big deal it is for you to be here. We encourage you to stay to the end so we can have some Q&A. If there's any questions for Terry specifically, Hannah will take those, and we'll pop them up when the time's right. I did see a note from Guy. I guess he's got something come up, and he needs to jump soon. Russell, is it okay if we have Guy go real quick, and then you can kind of close us out after Guy?
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. So, Guy, please, we look forward to having a conversation with you.
Okay. Well, you know what we're looking at today for all of the attendees, and hearing from Terry, what he did is all of us, and Russell, we need to, and all the school districts, we need to go back now with the COVID as we emerge. We need to revisit our security and our emergency plan, operations plans, because you know what, they're needed more than ever. And that's what that's going to include is looking at what our security technologies that are in place, and looking at all of the emergency operation plans. So dusting them off. It's so important that we do that. And I'm sure Russell's going to agree with me on that, is the threats and the threats that we dealt with before, that we mitigated with Convergence and other manufacturers and integrators in our school districts, they haven't disappeared. In fact, they're probably going to be even a little bit more prevalent as we emerge from schools, or emerge from the COVID emergency. So what is our goal? You know, when we work with an integrator, when we work with manufacturers, when we work with other stakeholders in our schools, the goal should be for us to enable normalcy again. All schools should aim to have their students attend school in person, which is how they learn best. And by you doing that, that is our goal as a security director, and as a security professional, is to bring in the best things in to help our schools to regain that new normal. A good integrator, good technologies, good policies and procedures are going to allow us to do that. One of the things we need to also think about is, schools are 24-hour, 365 centers of gathering for the community, the sports and all the other activities that go on. We think about the coaches, we think about those that are attending after school activities, we think about the teachers and the staff. You know, what we're doing is enabling those teachers to teach, the students to learn. But also, we also think about all the other stakeholders, how valuable our school are to the community. As a parent, attending those games that my son and my daughter, or those after hours activities, it's so important. Schools are community centers, and we have a responsibility. And as we emerge from COVID, to alleviate that fear of COVID, but also alleviate the fear of other incidents. We looked just a couple days ago, we had a school shooting. You know, things are still there, and they're going to emerge. But what's most important is working with your integrators and your stakeholders and your manufacturers, is considering the layers of safety measures that can help keep our students and staff and community safe. You know, when we look at it, safe schools equal prosperous communities. One of the things I picked up from the gentleman before me is he talked about the community and keeping that community up to date. It's really important if you want to get a successful bond project. You know, when you put it out for bond, you know, for the vote, you need to sell that to the community. And, you know, when we look at that, school safety is always in the top 4 of school safety concerns of parents in the community. So when we think about that, working with your integrators, working with your manufacturers, and working with your security technology people, and working with the mental health and the other stakeholders in your district, you need to be thinking about unified security. And when you look at that little diagram of dominoes on the side, it's really, or excuse me, not dominoes, Legos. It's, when we look at unified security systems, it's about bringing our technologies across different platforms within the connected environment in which they reside. And we work with an integrator, and we need to ensure that they're properly implemented. And when they're implemented properly, a unified security system eases the integration of new components and allows the district to continue to evolve and expand. That's what that gentleman's doing beforehand. He's working and he's building a system for now and for the future. You know, if there's another COVID response, he's going to be ready for it. That having those good infrastructure and those Lego pieces, so to say, it's going to help him to build and address those emergencies in the future. Sadly, if he has a active threat incident on his campus, it's going to help him be more ready for his community and his stakeholders in his schools to respond to those emergencies. We think about it, it's an all hazards response. We need to think about that. COVID, mental health, learning, culture and climate, they're all in there. So it's important for a school district to work with their integrator to ensure facility infrastructure can support any new technology as part of a unified system. And that's the key, because, you know, you might have a bond project and you're putting in all those Legos together, you're going to be adding Legos down the road, so to say, different components, and that's what you want to need. Now, Convergent is a good integrator, and they are aware of what we're talking about here is unified security. Unified security is the key.
Hey, Guy, quick,
Yeah.
I apologize. If you go back to that previous slide, just briefly.
Okay.
When we talk about unified security, we also talk about connected communities and looking at the local police department, the local county sheriff, maybe even some of the other large employers that are near that school district or schools. When you're looking at your school security unification of security technologies or life safety solutions, are you considering these other entities around your community as well and what they're using? Are you trying to get aligned with them?
That is so important because, again, it's like when you have an emergency in your school, it's a, you know, the major ones, they're going to be community-based emergencies. And we look at COVID, that was a community-based emergency. I come from you to everybody here as a person who's been in active shooter incidents in schools. And unfortunately, you know, they're tragic events. However, we need to be able to give that ability for everyone to use our people, processes, procedures, and components of safety and security and technology and things to respond to those emergencies. So that's important. And we need to include all of the community as much as possible, all of those key stakeholders in the community when we're designing these systems. We need to include local law enforcement. We need to include the fire department. And even, you know, one of the things is, one is the local health department and things. And those are things that need to be done and need to be considered. And that's what, you know, and I'm glad you brought that up, because that's what a good integrator is going to do. They're going to realize that that's important. If they don't, steer clear of that integrator, I would tell you. If it's, you know, you need to be looking at somebody that sees the big picture, just like you see the big picture. And it's all about working together to bring the best technologies, processes, and procedures to your district in the end.
Thanks, guys.
When you look at the framework, and this comes from Safe and Sound Schools, I like to look at this as a really good model. There's something for, you know, the big picture is to think about when, you know, when what Convergent just said. It's all about, we're looking at the different areas of mental health, mental and behavioral health. We're looking at health and wellness. And there, again, there's a strong correlation with safety and security in enabling this framework to work. And you'll see it, physical safety and security. All of these components are components that work together in the system. So when you are building your system, you're going to bring the stakeholders from these different areas to help you in building your system. Now you're going to consider your culture and climate and community, but you're also going to be looking at your leadership and law and policy. And you're going to be also developing, as we said in that first slide, developing your emergency operations management plan and unifying that with your physical safety security system. It's again, it's Legos, and they're constantly building and evolving. If anything proved to us as stakeholders in schools that we have worked together, and you know, we think about schools that were in person or did partial in person, you darn well used your security system that you had in place, or you wished you had a security system in place to help you to go forward and deal with that emergency, especially when it came to health and you know, access control and getting people in and out of the school safely with temporal monitoring and other needs for the schools. But what I would say to you, if you're interested in learning more from that model, you can go to the Partner Alliance for Safer Schools, and then also our partner Safe and Sound Schools. Again, we're advocating for all of these frameworks to be worked and considered together. And it tells me that when Convergent is thinking of the same things, because as he said in that previous slide, this exactly leads into what he just said. It's considering all of your stakeholders in the schools and out of the schools that may support you. So when we look at school safety and you're looking at these projects, you need to consider your components of safety and security. And we think about that, safety and security components are policies and procedures, people, roles, and training. Because, you know, one of the cool things about unified security or integrated security is the different amount of stakeholders in your school district can utilize those things at any given day. People are integral to safety and security. And, you know, it might not be your school resource officer, it could be your secretary who's doing visitor management in the office, and she needs those tools. He or she will be that. He or she needs those tools to go forward and ensure that we're not letting the wrong persons into the school that don't belong there. But, or you could think about the coach that may need the a lock on the locker room door, you know, and give a card to the student to ensure that, you know, to reduce the risk of theft in the locker room. And then obviously security components as we go in, when we talk about bond projects, you know, yeah, we'll have safety and security, but a lot of times that bond project is going to reside under a general contractor to be included in the architectural side. Excuse me. got some dust blowing in from the trees outside. Communication is another piece. When we look at that safety and security components, it's broad. Communication could be your mass notification system, your alert systems, but also communication, as the gentleman before me has stated, is keeping the public up to date on your projects and things, the competency that you bring. The communication is probably huge, because if you don't communicate, you're not going to get forward in what you're doing. Other areas that we need to think about is access control. And we look at the access control component. Often the access control systems are so integral, because, and especially in this day and age, because they're also are big keys in unifying the other safety and security components to what you're doing. Often the access control component will work with a video surveillance system, the detection of alarms, the visitor management systems. They're all working together in this day and age, and there's no silo of security systems. We're looking at open architecture, and that is what a good integrator is going to do. They're going to be looking to help you grow your security system going forward in a holistic way. And we think about our video surveillance systems. They're so valuable. When I remember when I first started, adopting, the new analog after, the old tape in the 1990s, we started moving to analog. There was a lot of resistance from staff on what the intent of video surveillance was. And it was important for us to communicate. And then once we put those cameras in, everybody wanted to have those cameras. They realized how valuable the security, this type of security was to the schools. But it continues to be valuable. And then we look at things like detection and alarms. It's all about and when I talk about detection and alarms, we're talking good old fashioned motion detector, door contacts, beam detectors in your transportation lots or on your rooftops, things like that, and unifying the work together. But it's all about safety and security and empowering the teachers to teach and the students to learn and the community not to worry about their loved ones at school. So what I would recommend to you as a partner Alliance for Safer Schools, we worked together with integrators like Convergence and others, and we came up with a good tools and guidelines and recommendations that you can download for free. And they will help you to speak the language of your integrator, and they will help the integrator to speak the language of the end user. So what we recommend to you is it all starts out with your building assessments and looking at your school at a layer. Think about your school as a layer, the outside district-wide layer, where we're doing a lot of the decision making and things like that, what's going to go forward. But we think about the property perimeter layer around your schools. There's no one-size-fits-all solution. And that's what a good integrator is going to help you do. It's going to help you to address look through a assessment of your school by layer. It's going to help you to build and put the appropriate technology, people, processes, and procedures, and all of the necessary components all through these layers. So we think about the property perimeter layer. We think about the parking lot perimeter. In a school, the most common place for injuries at a school is the parking lot perimeter. How do we do that? Good integrators can help you with technologies to help you make that area safer, but also to keep your area surveillance to deter losses and things like that. Your building perimeter, keeping your doors locked. How do we do access control? How do we get kids that, maybe you're outside at gym time to back in to use the restroom and do it safely without, hindering the safety and security of the rest of the occupants inside the building. But when the worst comes to worst, we think about that as these layers is you have an active threat incident, such as an active shooter incident, that every one of those layers is going to be important to be considered. And they're important for every type of emergency that goes on. Those of you that are security directors, you can say probably one of the most common issues you have is people coming to your office and being mean and yelling and screaming and things. So in there. So
Never happens.
So to close this out, what I want to say is everybody that's here, think about it in a holistic way. Think about how you're going to, look at your plans. Look how you're doing, going back to this slide. Can everybody see that right there? The mental health. Sure. Go back to that slide and think about how you can holistically influence every one of those areas in your school with your bond projects, your projects in safety and security, but how you're going to develop your plans going forward. Thank you.
Guy, thank you. If you could stop sharing as well, that'd be great.
Okay, I apologize.
Guys, I'm sorry. Guys involved in the PASS group, you can find links to PASS on the Convergent website as well. There's some incredible information that's there and available for anyone to download and take advantage of, and we highly encourage you to do that. Thank you, Guy. Appreciate that very much. So, Russell, from the road somewhere in Texas, we look forward to hearing from you and kind of talking about some of your experiences over the past year, being open during COVID and your perspective on all of that.
Yeah, and a lot of good information from Guy and Terry, and very much relatable, and definitely the equipment is important. It's a great tool for the tool pouches that you carry mentally and physically. Ours will probably be a little different because the one thing that separates us starting last year versus schools and districts starting this coming year is they have the COVID shot, right? The vaccinations. So we started without it. We didn't know when it was coming. We kept being told it was be January. So we were giving our district, our parents, and even staff always just staff, but in person or virtual. And so that kind of a soft start, if you might say, back in late August into the fall. And what we experienced basically was about half.
Oh, we got a tough connection there, it sounds like, Russell. Hannah, is there any way to clean that up? I have no idea.
No, it's just the connection on his side. Russell, if you're able to start talking again, sometimes if you stop your video, that'll give you a little bit more bandwidth. If you just want to stop sharing your video, but you can still speak.
Can you still hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Are we back on? It looked like I lost it for a minute.
Well, we'll give it another try, and if it cuts out again, we'll capture some information for people to know.
Okay.
Perhaps.
So back into where we had, with that said, virtual in person, we also experienced some things that I don't know if the Oregon schools will experience, if they'll have that option or if it's going to be mandatory that they're all in person. But we're also, population base is about 43,000.
Well,
district, 200 square mile building as well. With that said, we get paid per student based on property taxes that are collected. So if students withdraw, we as a district lose money. And basically, so if you're predicting a budget at 43,000 and then it drops 41,000, guess what? The funding to your district is just dropped, and you have a budget that you're expecting. A lot of things that we experience, and then we're still actually struggling with that right now. And not just us, the whole state of Texas, we're struggling with how to make cuts without cutting staff, how to make cuts, because there were some federal dollars that came to the state. We're not sure what the governor's going to do with it quite just yet, how it's going to be doled out. But a lot of question marks, a lot of unknowns right now as far as budget and getting it back on track. A lot of our kindergarten students had actually withdrawn. That was a big class area that withdrew. Then of course the younger ages, they just homeschooled them basically. So that, realizing that drop, we also had issues with the, and I'm going to get to that while I'm talking about just this issue besides security, because this is what kind of unfolds, is that we had a drop in staff, a lot of staff members before the vaccine itself had family members that were at risk, didn't feel they could come to school. And so there were some resignations. There were some that were able to do virtual instead of come to class, but they can only do so many virtual. So the other issue was finding substitutes. Our district had to actually go to, excuse me, I got the same dust, I think someone else did. Our substitutes had to go to a temp, I guess they call it temp outfit organization. So this organization actually helped our district find temporary substitutes. That was unique in itself, because normally in our in our community, there's always substitutes, a pool of substitutes that's ready to go. But those substitutes were also parents who didn't want to be in the schools itself. So the struggles were real when it came to staffing, students actually coming back. I'm not too sure what TA, our organization that regulates the educational part in Texas, is going to mandate as far as the opening in the fall. But that's, like I said, that does affect everything that you know about. That's unusual. Now, yes.
Russell, I'm just curious, with a certain number of students perhaps leaving the district and choosing to be remote or homeschooled, and maybe some teachers also leaving, is there an expectation this fall that the population, if you will, at your district will be less? And is that an expectation at other school districts? Maybe Guy, have you heard anything about that?
Well, we're hoping with the vaccine has changed everything for everyone. We're hoping that the more vaccinations that occur, the more that'll return. We're hoping for the ones that withdrew that are homeschooling will register again. They've really been pumping up the registration process, calling folks at home, saying, hey, it is time to register. Are you going to register? Actually doing one-on-one conversations with parents, really ramping up that side of the coin to get them back in school and registering.
Interesting.
I feel like there's hopes that it's going to pick back up. And here's the other side of that coin. When we do pick back up, we're also getting people moving in. I don't know if you keep up with the news. We butt up against Austin, Texas. So with Austin, there's a lot of growth going on. You can't even get a house. There's no inventory left to get a house, and builders aren't building because wood's too high. They're putting things on hold. So if Tesla's putting a big manufacturing out in Austin, so we still have a lot of growth coming in. And so with that said, everyone's been concerned about the safety side with COVID, which I totally understand. But I think Guy alluded to is that we tend to forget the security end of it, not on purpose, but what we've noticed and as a security director, I've been easily reminding each and every campus when I go visit and do audits that we've got to get back up to our normal way of security, our normal standard response protocols, and start using them the way we've taught you how to use them. Because this equipment, which we have great access controls we've updated. Cameras, we're always constantly trying to add more cameras. We're always trying to look at how to get access. When you go into a lockdown, for example, you're an actual lockdown. How do you get our first responders to come in? And no one thinks about that. Is like, how do I get my first responders access that normally do not visit schools, but the cavalry's coming, and yet we're in the lockdown. So there's these things that we have to make sure that I have great access, great security, but it's so good in some cases that we don't have ways of getting access to our first responders, at least immediate access. We can get them access, but it may not be as immediate. So we found a way for that as well, to get them immediate access for when the threat's inside the building. But little things that we've noticed, on far as security goes, is that as a campus, we're halfway populated. To say the campus may hold a kindergarten 800 students, it's normally running about 300 or 400 kids. Certain things, as I found through our audits, and this is something I would highly recommend to most security directors and your teams, is get back in those campuses, get back in the schools, and start going through audits. Start looking at your doors. Are they working properly? Have they been used in a while to where some of them may be electronically controlled, some of them may not be, some of them have been rearranged. I'm going into campuses where I find I've got the best electronic capabilities you can think of, but if I got someone using a $1 hardware doorstop in this door, it's not going to be working very well. And so,
hey, Russell,
yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, but a quick question. Is it recommended, do you think? I mean, we have so many school districts we work with from coast to coast. Is there value as a partner to these school districts to offer the ability to maybe come into their schools and say, hey, we'd like to help you with this audit and kind of, reestablishing things now that this crazy year is over, relook at things, have our engineers and high level colleagues come in and participate. Is there value in that?
Yeah, there's a lot of value, especially if you're looking at updating equipment or equipment you don't even have, may not even be aware of, or even equipment you have and not using it to its full capability. We're finding a lot of that as well, is that we've had equipment in place, and depending on who's in that role, now can say, hey, did you know this can do that? No, we didn't. And so, yes, having a full team that can tell you how you can use their existing technology as well as add to it without breaking the bank. But the biggest thing that the audit should also do is, all these things are great and tools are great, but the people have to be, the culture has to change its ways of doing things. And convenience is so prevalent in so many ways. And we see it everywhere, not just in school districts. We see it just happening at homes. We see it as you shop. If you're not aware and looking at your surroundings, we kind of get a little laxed. And so the training for people is intimate, is more important, and not more important than your technology. But if you don't have the right culture and the folks aware of how to use your technology, then how do you tell your taxpayers that we just didn't use the technology you've paid millions of dollars for? So that's something that's very important. And that's what the audits, when you have a team going, not just for technology purpose, but what is their patterns, their habits? Have they changed them to where it's not useful anymore? Do you need to get them back on track when they do their drills? How are they doing them? Are you watching them? Is your first responders also involved in watching drills and see if there's anything? Do you have like a hot wash? Do you have an after debriefing? And talk about what went well, what didn't. So we find ourselves having to ramp those back up and talk to our staff and say, do you remember when we told you, okay, this is what we need to start doing? And so it's something that COVID has just really wrecked a lot of people's mindsets, and which I get it. I totally understand it. It's really wrecked habit with us. It's changed our world. It's kind of been upside down for a while. And what is norm when you return to norm, right? So but the security parts of it don't change, right? The technology, the people, the way they need to perform during an emergency.
Well, I think Russell, thank you, and I think what you're alluding to is a lot of what Guy is really talking about is the need to revisit your plan, revisit where you are, and refresh it all. For the new year, the new school year this fall, because a year of deviation from your normal rhythm and your normal cadence, some things are going to be forgotten or dropped or not used the right way, perhaps. So for my colleagues from conversion that are on, it's certainly something for us to consider. I do want to give Terry's asked for just a couple of minutes to share a few more things about what they're doing. Terry, I'll give you 3 or 4 minutes if that's cool. And then we want to just open it up in case there's any questions at large. So Russell, thank you very much. We know you're on the road and taking the time to do that's a big deal. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Terry, take a few minutes, man.
All right. So, both Guy and Russell really brought a couple things out that we did, and I forgot to share it. But we had a moment that we didn't understand the layering. We had our security director that brought that to our attention. So Kevin was able to help us understand signage is very important as we come into a campus and as we look in. And I always thought security was at the building, but that was very important. And then the other piece of that is that integration with the lockdown lockout. We actually had an active shooter issue at one of our schools. It was the day before Virginia Tech. So luckily there was nobody hurt, but live fire into a classroom from a field. And so we touched it, we felt it, but in the event that we have a lockdown lockout, working with the integrator, understanding that we have needs out there that are going to be in loud areas. What are we going to do in that gym or that cafeteria or that auditorium, and do interruption to classroom or PA systems to be able to hear that all call in the system? And so pushing that further through working with security folks and understand that, and our integrators was very important. We're not there yet, but it does give us that future to look forward to. So I just wanted to share that those things are alive and well in an operational side with facilities, and being able to, again, throw a curveball to an integrator, and it was just, oh, we do that. Here's what we do for that, and you should be thinking about it. So thank you. I just want to throw that in.
We never get curveballs, Terry. It's always just nice and easy every time we do it. Well, Guy has to jump, I believe. Are there any, Hannah, is there any questions that have been sent in specifically for the team?
No questions, but if anybody has any, feel free to enter them in. We can also, have anybody follow up if you need to.
Well, can I say one more thing? Just,
Yeah, please do.
When we do these risks, as Russell stated and Terry stated, it's very important that we go back and assess where we are and on your technology, but all of those components, especially look at your technology side, but don't go back and look at your threat assessment side. I think that as schools, we're going to need to be really prepared for the challenges of people, young people that have been basically not part of the school system or a traditional school system for many months, and we need to be prepared for that. Let's go back, look at that. We need to make sure that they're safe. But what most important out of this whole conversation today is we need to make them feel safe to come back to school. We need everybody to feel safe. And that's, if we can go a long way by working together with our integrators and all of those stakeholders and getting that back. I thank you, everybody. I got to go to a campus safety webinar, but I thank you for being honored here to be here today. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Guy and Terry and Russell. It's a lot to hear from people that are doing the work every day. We seek out a lot of different avenues to try to source the right information at the right time. And there's nothing more valuable than hearing it from your mouth directly. So we appreciate it. Thank you. And for everyone who took the time, we appreciate it. This has been recorded, I think, as well. So it'll be available at some point. So thank you so much. We'll give everyone 6 minutes back in their lives today. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Terry.